Hey guys, it's Aiden from Gamers Class. Today I'm going to be doing another video for my carry climbing guide, with today's video being focused on Ancient to Divine. So I'm going to be giving you guys a couple of pointers to help you get to the Divine bracket, start moving on towards the Mortal. And also basically I'm just going to be looking over this Juggernaut replay here. So this is just a replay of a Ancient 1 Juggernaut player. And I'm going to be looking through the replay, giving you guys a couple of tips, and then I also have a couple of specific things that you guys can actually start focusing on to like kind of improve your gameplay to a point where you can, you know, get to that Divine bracket a little bit easier.
If you like this type of content, go to gamersclass.com. For just $9.99 a month, watch masterclasses with pro players, join exclusive live sessions, and get 24/7 access to coaches and other high MMR players. Get full control of your ranked games and start owning with our Supreme Dota 2 membership.
First and foremost, my first tip before we even get into the video, which is a pretty broad tip, but that tip is to start learning your matchups and also start using this like the knowledge of those matchups that you've gotten to pick better heroes in your games. If there's one thing I see happen a lot in like Ancient, even Divine games, is people just pick bad heroes. Like in some games you'll get last pick as a carry, and it's important to know that in those games as a carry player you need to be picking the hero that's like winning the game, right? If you're just trying to like learn a hero and first pick your carry hero and you want to learn counters and stuff, that's fine, you can do that if you want to. But if you're picking in the second phase, or if you're picking in the last phase, you need to actually be picking a hero that makes sense, that does well against, you know, the enemy offlaner, can lane well against the enemy offlaner, has a decent matchup against the enemy safe laner. And obviously, you know, and obviously you're looking at the supports. How much catch does the supports have? This is a lot of the time going to impact what items you buy and what hero you're going to play. So, you know, just overall, it's very, very important to just start learning your matchups. Like just play matchups that you want to learn as much as possible. And if you're having struggle like understanding matchups, just go and look at some high rank like Immortal player, or even just any Immortal player really, and try just like look at the matchup that you're trying to learn and try figure out why they're doing the things they're doing in the laning stage, in the mid game, etc. Right? This is something that's like just very important, and it's going to be helpful for anyone in any brackets, is just learning your hero matchups. And learning your hero matchups just helps with everything in the game, because it's going to make you pick a better hero. It's going to make you play your lane better because you understand why your hero is like a counter to that hero. And overall, it's just a very, very good thing to do. So yeah, the first thing of the video to start off is learning your matchups, and also use this knowledge to, you know, pick better heroes and etc. And then getting into a little bit more of a specific mechanic or tip here, or a pointer for you guys. Something that you're gonna have to start learning if you're gonna get to that Mortal bracket, Divine bracket, etc., is you need to start learning aggro, and using aggro in the laning stage to get last hits, stop opponents from getting last hits, etc. But the main thing that I just want you guys to understand here is that you need to start learning everything about aggro, and you need to start learning how to use it to kind of get last hits, you know, get your lane in better position. And it's something you need to be using if you're going to actually start playing high rank games, because if you don't know how like aggro works very well, or maybe you just have a basic understanding of it, you use it every now and then, you're just going to get outplayed in the laning stage by higher rank players. So basically what I mean by this is, like, in the laning stage, a lot of the time, by aggroing a creep when it's low, and like aggroing a creep back to last hit when it's low, this is gonna mean that you're gonna get like a little bit less damage from the enemy, right? Because let's see if I can find an example here in the game, just to give you guys an example. But for example, like right now, this Beastmaster is dead, but let's say that there's a hero contest in the lane against this Juggernaut, and it's like a Beastmaster he has double boars or whatever. And in these sort of situations, it's very important that you know how to like last hit creeps, right? And generally, if you watch any high ranked games and you watch the carry player play the lane, you're gonna see that when the creeps start getting low, he's gonna A-click on the enemy and he's gonna drag creeps back, right? Even here is a good example. This sniper uses shrapnel on the middle of the wave. So our Juggernaut, what he can do here to avoid taking all this damage from shrapnel, he can move over here, he can A-click on sniper. These creeps are then going to follow him here, and he's going to now move the lane from here to here so that his creeps don't stand in the shrapnel and he doesn't stand there either. So this is like just one example of how you use aggro, right? But it's very, very important, like I'd say from ancient onwards, is that you start using this in all your games, right? You're using aggro the whole time to take a little bit less damage, to put the creep in a safer position. Let's say the lane is over here, your support is pulling, there's 2 heroes in the lane. You can simply just aggro the creeps back further down to just last hit the creeps over here instead, right? So this is something that's very, very important to do. Especially in higher rank games, but I would urge ancient players in specific to just start working on this specific mechanic, right? Because it's something that's it's just gonna like make every part of the game better for you, but especially the laning stage is most helpful, because this is where you'll get the most use out of it, right? So yeah, so basically start learning aggro, start learning how to aggro creeps to take less damage, to put it in a safer position in the lane, and just get very comfortable with the mechanic. Because if you're gonna reach the divine, I would say even in the divine bracket, people use aggro a lot, but probably if you'll notice the most when you look at like immortal games and higher immortal games, people are always using aggro to get last hits. You'll even see like when a range creep is getting low, what you can do as well, this is like a little bit of an advanced trick that people do in higher ranks, but if you watch like higher rank immortal players and you actually look for this, like when, let's say this dire range creep is like starting to get really low, and now Beastmaster wants to come up and last hit it, right? But it's like it's not quite one hit away from last hitting, but it's gonna be from the enemy creeps from attacking it, right? So then you'll see a lot of the time what people do is they'll A-click on the Beastmaster, so his creeps de-aggro this creep and start attacking him for a second, which means that they're not attacking the range creep. So then Beastmaster goes for the last hit and he doesn't get it, right? Because he aggroed all those creeps that were going to do the damage to get him into kill range, just as the Beastmaster is about to last hit it. So he misses the last hit and you get a free deny on the range creep. So this is just like an example of an advanced trick that a lot of immortal players use, like high rank immortal players. And it's just something that you need to start being aware of. Like you need to start using, not specifically this, but you just need to start using aggro to take less damage in the lane, put creeps in safer positions, and it's also going to help you in a lot of situations to get last hits, because especially against ranged heroes, using aggro to get last hits is kind of needed when you're against heroes like Nature's Prophet and stuff, because you aggro the creep as his projectile is coming towards the creep, and you can pull it far away enough so his projectile doesn't hit the creep before you can hit it because you're melee. So it's just a very important thing to start working on, especially for your laning stage. It's going to help you in tons of scenarios, and it's just a good thing to kind of be aware of. So yeah, kind of one of the more specific tips there. Just for laning stage in general. As we can see in this replay specifically, the lane is going very well for our Juggernaut. He's already killed the Beastmaster once, and he's a full level and a half up on him. His item builds makes a lot of sense. He goes Wraithband because he's playing against Beastmaster. You know, the boars deal physical damage, the armor is nice, the Wraithband is going to help you last it. And then something that's very important as well is he rushes boots in the lane, right? And this is something that's pretty specific to Juggernauts. Also a couple of other carry heroes like Slark. But on this hero specifically, it's really nice to get your brown boots before like you get your like a stick or whatever, right? Because you want the boots to help you chase people down, so that you can use your Blade Fury to get more kills. And also the nice thing about getting early boots in this lane is you're playing against Beastmaster, and this is a hero that relies on his summons. So you want the boots to help you run down boars and get last hits on these boars. Like a lot of the time when you're playing against heroes like Beastmaster or Enigma, it's very important that you focus on trying to pressure their boars as much as possible. Like if you can kill all of Enigma's Eidolons, it's like a lot of gold and XP, and it makes up for the gold that he's denying from him denying your range creep, right? So in specific, when you're playing against heroes that like summon things, and in Enigma's case he denies things, it's very, very important to be able to pressure those summons, right? Because those are the things that actually wins Beastmaster the lane. If you're killing his boars every time he's summoning it, it's very hard for him to play the lane at an equal footing. Like you'll be way stronger than him if you're able to do that. So again, all these little things are very important to understand. And like I said, it's good that he buys the boots early because it helps him do a lot of things in this lane, and it's also just a very good way to build your hero on Juggernaut. So these were some good kills. And also rushing the phase boots. This is something that's been like pretty popular in, I'd say, the last 2 metas, maybe even the one before that. But getting your boots like as early as possible is just really, really good for the laning stage. Whether that be your treads or your phase boots, kind of depending on the hero you're playing, obviously. So again, these are all just basic things that I would say at the ancient level you should be pretty familiar with. Like you should understand that this is a good way to buy your items. And when it comes to buying items just in general, what I would say is a good like kind of thing to follow is just always have a reason for why you're buying an item, right? Like this isn't necessarily what you're gonna buy every game on Juggernaut just because it's very good here, right? Sure, it makes a lot of sense here. You're buying Wraithband fast because of the armor and it's gonna help you CS. You're playing against physical damage heroes, Sniper and Beastmaster. You're getting boots fast to help run down summons and help you with kills. It synergizes very well with Blade Fury. But if you're playing against another hero like Bristle or Bad Rider, of course you're just gonna start with a stick. It's gonna be different, right? And maybe you're not gonna go Wraithband, you're gonna upgrade your stick, and then you're gonna go boots, and you're gonna go treads or phase, and then you're gonna go Wraithband after you get your phase boots, right? So it's always gonna depend on the hero you're playing against and the hero you're playing. And the important thing I'd say when it comes to buying like items, especially in the laning stage, is you just need to have a reason for why you're buying that item, right? So it basically is just that simple, and that's kind of the best way I see to look at it. Is you just need to buy items that make sense against the hero you're playing against, and most of the time it's going to be good and it's going to be the right item to buy. If you watch any of my videos before, you'll see that a very important part of the game for the carry hero is around 10 minutes. Because this is a point of the game where you have an option to possibly make a rotation to your off lane or your mid lane even, to try pressure the enemy tower with your catapult. Because, you know, obviously catapults are spawning every 5 minutes. And 10-minute timing is a pretty good timing for you to actually look to do something as a carry. Like if you look at high level competitive games, you'll see that a lot of team strategies are to just run at your mid tower at like 10 minutes with that catapult and with all their heroes, and just try get that tower down, right, to get that advantage. So obviously in pubs it's not going to be as structured as that, but as a carry player you have a lot of control over these rotations, because most of the time you're going to be the hero that wants to be involved in these rotations, because obviously you're getting a lot of farm out of the lane, or you should be at least, and this is going to allow you to be a little bit stronger than other heroes will be at this point of the game. So you want to use that catapult timing to try pressure that. So this is, again, something you always need to be looking out for, these 10-minute rotations. It's not something you're going to do every game. If there's a reason why you feel like it's not possible in the game, then you shouldn't be doing it. And you should be probably just shoving out the top lane, farming jungle, you know, just kind of basic carry things that you're doing. But here is a kind of a good instructive moment that I actually saw in this game. That is going to happen in most of your guys' games. Like, it will always come to a point in your game. Like, I feel like this happens pretty much every game, where basically Beastmaster is now, he's got his Necro 1. He's the Juggernaut has like been playing solo on the lane for a little bit. This generally happens, like the enemy, your +5 will kind of move around the map a bit or whatever, and it would depend on what time this will happen in the game, but obviously the lower the level, generally the later it will happen. But what I have to say about this is, when the enemy are kind of trying to take down your tower, as the carry, it's not really your job to defend this, right? So we see Beastmaster is now, he's trying to take this tower. And obviously we don't want to give this guy a free tower. So basically in this point of the game, you basically have two options as a carry player, right? So your first option is to defend this tower. If you're going to defend this tower, you need TPs from your teammates. So you're going to need like your mid laner or your off laner +1 to TP, and then you try to defend it, like, right? So in this situation, it's only 2 heroes going for the tower. So this is probably pretty easily defendable. Like if Slaughter and Treant TP in, you can probably just defend this. But in the case where your teammates don't want to defend it, as the carry player, generally your second best option is to move to another part of the map. Let's say right now as Juggernaut, you see that they're going to go for your top tower. Your teammates don't want to defend it. So what you should be doing here, if it's possible, it's to TP bottom. It's to push in this bottom lane, and it's to do the same thing to their bottom tower, right? And this is very important to do, like, as soon as they start pushing your tower. Like, as soon as you see they're going to commit to kill your tower, you should be trying to counter do this, right? You want to do the same thing to their tower. But it's important that you do it as soon as possible, because if you wait for him to kill your tower first, and then you've only started hitting his tower once he's killed your tower, then obviously it's going to make it a lot easier for the enemies to defend it. But the reason why it's very important to start as soon as possible, because if you start hitting the tower at the same time as he does, it's a much better chance that they're not going to try to defend it, because you're going to be already done too much damage to the tower. They're not going to be in good enough position. You're going to have too much vision because, you know, your creeps are here, your heroes can sit wherever they want, your teammates can sit here, and it makes the fight a lot harder to take. So something I saw in this replay, pretty instructive moment. When the enemy is trying to go for your tower, your safe lane tower, and you feel like you can't defend it and your teammates don't want to TP to defend it, as a carry, your best option is to try TP to your off lane or your mid lane and trade towers if you're not going to defend it, because it's obviously not ideal to just give up a free tower. I mean, sure, it's a Beastmaster, he pushes fast, but this still isn't really something you want to happen. Because if you start giving away free towers and you lose like one fight, the game just starts to look very grim very quickly. If you do feel like it's completely impossible for you to trade towers, and it's also impossible for you to defend the tower, then obviously in those situations, that's the only time you're going to move back to your jungle. And then generally the best thing to do after this tower has dropped, it's to stay in the top area after the tower has dropped for a bit. And whenever this lane shoves in, you're going to shove it back in. And the idea is you want to consistently keep this top lane shoved in, and make sure that the enemy offlaner is staying in this top area, because you don't want him to like move towards your mid lane and mess with your mid laner, or move bottom and take another tower or something. You want to keep him preoccupied in this area so that he can't just like run around the map and destroy your team. So yeah, just a little tip here, something that I saw happen during the game, and I'll just continue looking at this part of the game for a little bit. Just look for any instructive moments for you guys, something like this. And here we see how Juggernaut is doing kind of the correct thing, right? Here they're trying to get a kill on the Beastmaster. I don't really like this. Like generally, this part of the map, you don't want to be trying to make moves like this, especially after your tower is dropped, because the enemy are going to have, it's very likely that they're going to have vision somewhere in your jungle, because while they were taking your tower, it's very likely that one of the supports placed a ward here or here. And if we look at the enemy's perspective, they do have a ward here. So it's just very hard for you to ever try and make moves like this, because they're going to have better vision. So unless your supports have dewatered this area, you don't really want to force rotations from your mid or something to try kill the Beastmaster. So obviously as a carry player, the important thing here, it's you do like your only goal here, it's to just shove in this lane and farm it, shove this in as far as possible and force the Beastmaster to continue dealing with the top wave. You don't want to like make any calls to your mid laner. You don't want to really like waste your mid laner's time to try like defend this, to try go for a Beastmaster kill or something. Your mid laner wants to be making moves on more on the enemy's part of the map, etc. They don't really want to be playing here. So if you're playing the dead lane as a carry, the important thing you need to realize is that your only objective here is to keep this lane shoved in for as long as it's safe. If it's not safe, you're not going to do it anymore. Moving on a little bit further here in the replay, another instructive moment for you guys, something to keep in mind. And the main thing that the main point here, it's to fight around your item timings as a carry, right? So this is probably something you've heard a million times as a carry player, but it's extremely important that you like kind of master this and you get very disciplined with it, because if you force like kind of fights and objectives around timings that don't make sense, a lot of the time it can be very game losing, and you're just going to lose a lot of MMR off of it until you stop doing it, because it's just going to force mistakes that are unnecessary. So at this point, 20 seconds into the game, and our Juggernaut here is pinging bottom tower. He's making the call to go for this bottom tower. So obviously Void is dead and he used Chrono, so it's a decent time to do it. But still, you need to be very careful, right? Like in this specific game, Ember is having a pretty decent game. They have pretty good heroes at defending towers, like Sniper and Ember, and you only have 3 heroes bottom. One being a Dark Willow with Midas, with no spells and very low mana, right? So you don't really want to force a fight here at all. So sure, like going for this tower makes a little bit of sense. Void is dead. They don't have Chrono. You see Ember mid and Crystal Maiden. The important thing here to realize though is we're not really that strong as Juggernaut, right? We have a Yasha and a Maelstrom, that's all. Like we're not really that good at fighting. We don't have Omni Slash, so we don't really want to force a fight here. So if the enemies are going to TP in numbers and try to defend this, that's fine. But it's very important we don't force a fight and try turn and kill them, right? That's the most important thing you need to realize. So whenever you're pushing towers, pushing objectives, you always need to be asking yourself these questions, right? If the enemy TP's in right now to defend this, are we strong enough to just stay and fight them, or are we actually going to just use that as a good, like forcing the enemy to be in this position, waste their TPs, and we just back off and take advantage of the map by forcing them all to one part? This is like a completely viable thing that you can do in your games, right? You can force enemies to part of the maps and then just leave and just take advantage of all the space that you have because they've TP'd to one part. But in this scenario, Juggernauts, we're going for the tower. We actually get the tower. We see Beastmaster is showing up, and obviously the Embers TP'd. So they're TPing to defend it. Void has also just respawned. And in this scenario, it's very important to realize that our Treant isn't here. Our Willow has very low mana. We don't have our Omni Slash. So it's very critical at this point to realize I don't really have my timings right now. I don't have a Manter. My Omni Slash is on cooldown. My Willow isn't ready to fight. So we cannot take this fight. But it's actually very good that we forced 4 heroes to TP to one part of the map. Because whenever you do this, it creates space for you to farm anywhere else on the map, because you know that they can only be bottom, right? If they go for your bottom tower, you can consider defending it because you're going to have your spells soonish and you have decent heroes at defending that. You can also just consider like sending it straight to mid and just try to take their mid tower, because getting their mid tower is a lot more valuable than they get in your bottom tower, right? Like this tower here, it's a lot more valuable than this. So forcing them here and then taking their mid tower while they take yours is actually not a bad trade for you. But the problem here is our Juggernaut decides that he wants to turn, or somebody makes the call to turn here. And the important thing to realize, as a carry, like something you need to realize as a carry is in these situations, if your team are making bad calls to take bad fights, you need to just put your foot down and you need to just run away. You need to spam your chat wheel. You need to spam get back, and you need to like make these calls. It's very, very important that you don't allow your teammates to ever like force bad fights. And you don't like kind of just follow your teammates blindly into bad plays, because if there's one thing that I've learned from playing ancient games, because long ago I used to smurf. I used to play on Smurf accounts, and I would play in ancient games sometimes, etc. You know, and one of the things I learned when I'm playing those games is that if you want to get out of ancient bracket, it's very important that you start to learn to think for yourself. You can't like rely on your teammates in the ancient bracket to make calls on which fights to take and which towers to take. You need to think about every decision by yourself, and you need to actually add to those calls. Because if you blindly just play the game every game and you kind of just follow what the team wants to do, you're going to be losing a lot more than if you used your own brain and kind of added suggestions to your teams. Tell your teams which fights are bad, which fights you don't want to take. Because as a carry player, you need to understand that your teammates always need to be playing around your item timings. If they're not doing that and you're fighting when you're not strong and there's no reason to fight, you're going to have random deaths, which is going to delay your timings, and it's going to make the enemy's timings faster if you're blundering deaths, right? So it's very, very important as a carry player that you don't allow your teammates to force you into bad fights, force you into bad objectives. Because if we look in this situation, this was actually quite a good situation for Dire. They got the bottom tower, enemy TP'd in late with 4 heroes, they used 4 TPs, and they were completely fine. They were gonna escape. So they basically took a tower bottom for free. They had none of their timings. They had no ult on Jog. They had no mana on Dark Willow. Yet Radiant still allowed them to take the tower. But then Radiant TP in, and Dire make the dire mistake of actually trying to take a fight here, right? And something that I just want to let you guys know is, like, as a carry player, this is completely on you if you die like this. And this is a very, very crucial death in this game. And a very crucial fight, which could have easily been avoided and could have easily turned into a situation where Dire get a tower bottom and they trade mid tower for bottom. So they get 2 towers for 1. And they also get a much more important tower. And also, Radiant's movement is a lot more limited because they used a bunch of TPs to defend bottom, right? So this is something like you always need to be looking out for as a carry player. You need to always check, are my spells ready? Do I want, if they TP into defend here, are we going to turn in fights, or are we just going to run away and try trade other towers? And it's something you need to be doing like throughout the whole game. And also a side thing there that I mentioned, something that you need to understand as well. If you're playing in like the ancient or the legend brackets, if you're going to just follow like calls that, you know, other players make in that bracket, without thinking about the decision yourself, you're going to lose a lot of games just off doing that. So it's very important to get your own idea of how the game is going, what fights are okay to take and which aren't, and stick to what you think is right. Because that's pretty much the only way you're going to get like an accurate set of games, right? Because if you're just listening to another guy every game you play, just going to be a bunch of random things happening, and you can't actually say, oh, that was my fault, that was actually that guy's fault because I listened to him, right? So you can just easily blame other people for making bad calls. But what you need to understand is, before you're in like top 1000 or even top 500 immortal brackets, you can't really rely on your teammates making gameplay calls. Like, you actually need to be involved on that, and you need to be thinking of it proactively. And if you think it's a bad fight and your teammates are fighting anyways, as a carry player, TPing in and just dying is not going to help you. It's going to be more beneficial by just skipping a wave or getting a tower and farming like 3 waves instead of taking a fight that you know is bad. And this is why Smurf players don't lose when they play low rank games, right? Because they know what fights are bad, and they know when they should just do something else. Even if their teammates are taking a bad fight, they know, okay, well, my teammates are making this mistake, but there's nothing I can do about it because they're not listening to me. So the best thing I can do is try fix their mistake by applying other pressure to other parts of the map, or skipping the wave so that they can't continue pushing, right? So this is something that's actually quite important to think of, especially in the ancient / legend bracket, because I think it's quite it happens quite often where people would just follow other people's calls and they'll just lose games solely of that. Okay guys, so skipping on to pretty much my last pointer of the video here, and this pointer is kind of connected with the last thing I spoke about. Basically, the fourth thing I spoke about where kind of relying on your teammates, avoiding team fights. And I just want to give an example of some good map movements, some things you should be thinking about when it comes to defending towers, etc. And kind of a very important thing as a carry player, your positioning on the map. So in this scenario, we see that when we look at the map, one of the main things that you always need to be aware of as a carry player is which part of the map is actually safe for you and which part of the map is dangerous. So the way you're going to always identify this is you're going to look at your map, you're going to see where your wards are placed. So generally where your wards are placed, it's going to be safer, and where your triangle part of the map is also generally your safer part of the map, just because it's harder for enemy to take this area. And then also another thing to just keep in mind is you always want to also keep like in the back of your head, where have the enemies kind of like, let's say the enemy just took bottom tower. If they controlled this area for like 5 minutes, it's likely that they have vision here. So if your supports haven't dewarded this area, it's important to ask them to do that, or if they're not doing that, you basically just need to avoid farming in that area, because as a carry, one of the very important things to do is to never farm on enemy vision, because that's just going to set up very easy ganks for the enemy, right? And it's going to give them too much info. So the important thing is, like, one of the or two tips as a carry player, just to like give you guys, is you want to try farm around your vision as much as possible, and you need to always make sure that to the best of your knowledge, you're not farming on any enemy vision. So that means a hawk, that means enemy observer, right? And obviously this means, like, if you see 5 enemies top push in, or you see 5 enemies killing Roshan, that doesn't mean you're not allowed to farm on vision, right? Because obviously farming on their wave is vision. The times when you are farming on their vision is when you know where they are and you know that it's 100% safe to do so. But generally in those scenarios, what you're going to be doing is trying to contest side lanes and pushing the lanes. So here's a good example. We see Beastmaster Ember mid. They're trying to pressure the middle tower, but as a Juggernaut, we're quite far behind in the game, and we don't even have our Manta yet, right? So it's very important that we're farming at this point. The only way you're gonna come back in this game is if you start getting items on your Juggernaut and then take fights as soon as you get those items. Or like, you know, just punish bad fights from the enemy, because like the fact is, when the enemy are ahead in net worth, like by 10k or whatever, you're relying on them making mistakes. So the best thing you can do as a carry player is try and encourage mistakes. And one of the best ways to do that is to just apply split pushing pressure. So pressure other parts of the map when they're trying to do things. So here's a good example. In this situation, our Juggernaut, he needs to be situated on the safe part of the map, and he needs to be trying to apply like counter pressure, right? And in these scenarios, if the enemy are going for your tower, as a carry, a lot of the time you don't want to be the guy in the front line unless you're a hero like Wraith King or some very tanky hero that you're sure the enemy will lose the fight if they initiate on you. That's pretty much the only time you need to actually be there in the front, right? When you're playing a hero like Anti-Mage or Juggernaut, any hero that can split push and is decently mobile, the best way to approach it is to apply pressure to side lanes and to use your TP to join fights to defend. Because you don't even want the enemy to be able to initiate on you. Even in this game, you're playing against Beastmaster and Faceless Void. It's very important that they don't get the jump on you, because if you get chronoed or roared, you're going to die most of the time, or you're going to take too much damage to continue fighting. So like one of the good ways to avoid this is to simply just not be there and use your TP to join the fight once one of your teammates have initiated. So again, this is just something, it's very important, you need to be doing throughout the whole game, especially in games where you're behind. You need to be applying pressure to other parts of the map. And like I said, if they have heroes that can kind of initiate you and on you and just burst you, you don't really want to be there. You would rather TP once the fight has already started, so it's impossible for them to initiate on you. Something kind of useful to keep in mind. And at this point, we see the fight just goes badly. It's very hard for them to take a fight at this point. It's even very hard for them to defend this. What Juggernaut needs to be doing here is he should have been pushing this lane the whole time. And this lane should be right here, like right now. And he should be forcing people to TP. And then what he's going to do, he's just going to run back, farm, if it's safe to do so. If he sees no heroes, he can consider just TPing top and farming this area. Something like this, right? So kind of just some basic map movements here to point out for you guys at the end. So yeah, that's going to be the end of the video, guys. A couple of pointers for you guys in Ancient Bracket as carry players. Some couple of specific things I looked at here as well in this replay. So I hope you guys found it useful and hope you enjoyed the video. So I'll see you in the next one, and thanks for watching. Cheers.